Warning, this Spoilercast does contain spoilers of current and past movies, books, games, TV shows, and possibly your life. So if you're listening to a show called Spoilercast and you're pissed off that we gave away spoilers, we really don't care. Thanks again and have a wonderful day.
Hello everyone and welcome to Spoilercast by All Tower Media. This is Alligator bringing you a new episode talking about that awesome western, Magnificent Seven. For those of you that haven't heard, D.A. Roberts has book 5 out for the Ragnarok Rising series, and coming soon is book number 2 of the Lost Legion series, taking place in the Infinite Black series. Make sure to check out our website, alltowerpodcast.com, as well as visit our Facebook page and Instagram at All Tower Media. Be sure to visit our friends with Flick Freaks at all social medias except MySpace. Watch for Let's Plays with All Tower Media, Flick Freaks, Spellbook. And speaking of Spellbook, if you have not yet downloaded Heroes of Dire, you really need to. That game kicks ass. Alright guys, get ready to laugh.
Hello and welcome to Spoilercast by All Tower Media. I was waiting for the countdown. Don't shrug at me.
I can't see him, so I don't know what he's doing.
You're just sitting over here. Everything's just
right.
quiet.
Just
You
like,
have no idea what I'm doing over here.
He's making
That
he's making
concerns me.
faces at you the whole time.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
So-
sure.
How are you this evening, Allie? I'm
Eh.
glad that there wasn't a very audible click at the end of our intro piece that I included last time, like I told you I would. Yes, I did.
Oh, you dick.
You're like, no, don't. And I'm like,
No, don't.
oh, this beginning intro piece is too fluid not to include it, so I did.
Whatever.
Yeah. Hey, Jareth, how are you?
I'm present.
You are indeed. You weren't present last time around,
I missed you.
and Allie did miss you. But we had a good
Very
time.
missable.
You are missing.
Kind of like we had you the time before that, but not Allie that time. So, you know, it's just kind
But
of...
nobody missed me. So
No, you were missed. We just had Andrew.
Wouldn't kill you to say it every once in a while.
We said it. What do you just constantly need to be praised?
No, I just like giving you shit.
Oh, okay. So tonight we are talking about the Magnificent Seven. Well, actually, tonight we're talking about a small village that is under attack by an outside force of large numbers of bad guys who require the assistance of seven skilled individuals to help defend their town.
Yes.
So this actually qualifies as two different movies.
Two
different titles.
Yeah,
two different titles. 3 different movies.
Yes.
Now, I have not watched the 1954 movie. And Jareth, I don't believe you've ever watched the 1954 Seven Samurai, have you?
Negative.
But Dire Monkey has.
Oh.
Dire Monkey, how was it?
Subtitled.
Yeah. That's what you got?
Yeah.
Subtitled?
Well, it was good. I mean,
It's considered to be one of,
supposedly.
like, the best movies.
These type of movies fall into the same category as, say, Archer.
Mm-hmm. For you?
And, yeah. And also was the new one that came out, something about 7 strings or something like that.
Oh, the kid with the 2 strings or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
They all just, if it's not like English and bright colors and live action, I couldn't give 2 shits.
Sorry about the snort right now in the microphone.
Oh, there you go.
So, to my understanding, the runtime on there it is right there.
Yeah.
For Seven Samurai is 3 hours and 27 minutes long.
Holy shit.
It's
a lot
long
of
for a 54 movie.
a lot of old films are much longer than modern films.
And this is straight up, what is this, Japanese?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why in like old school movie theaters and shit, they'd have like
Matinee.
like actual intermissions and stuff. Yeah.
But this is where this story kind of actually starts, because then later on, what is it, 1960?
Mm-hmm.
So what, 6 years later, they come back out and they make The Magnificent Seven, which is a Western. By the way, I was reading off of the 1954 description just a moment ago, but this for the 1960, he's pulled up all 3 of these up on IMDb. The 1961 specifies an oppressed Mexican peasant village hires 7 gunmen to help defend their home. So it's literally the same story.
Yeah.
Now, you were going to watch, Allie, the original one from 1960.
I was going to.
You were going to, but you didn't get the opportunity to.
I did not, unfortunately.
That's okay. Do you know anything about this movie?
Nada.
Do you know anything about the new one?
I know that Denzel Washington is in it.
Fantastic. That's a start. That's a start.
He's a handsome man.
Yeah, he is. They have some overlap and some consistency between this 2016 version versus the 1960s version. Some characters are named the same. Obviously, the story arc itself is the same, but outside of that, they don't really have a whole lot of overlap there.
Okay.
But one thing that Jareth and I started doing towards the end of the movie, right about the time that Ethan Hawke's character was like, "Peace out, biatches. I'm leaving," because shell shock.
Which, by the way, Ethan Hawke does a great job.
Yes,
in
he
this.
does. I was very surprised with his character because Ethan Hawke's character is, they call him Good Night. That's his name.
Good Night Robichaud.
Good Night Robichaud. And
from New Orleans.
Or they call him Goody. Every
Yeah.
now and then they call him Goody. But when you first find him, he's just kind of just sitting back and he's watching his buddy Billy Rocks.
Who is an Asian man.
Yes, he is. How do you say his name? It's Byung Hun Lee. Is that how you say that? It's like the fifth one down. It's the one right beneath Vincent D'Onofrio. Is that how you say that?
Sure.
What else is he in? I've seen him in other stuff. G.I. Joe. Yeah, he's in G.I. Joe, and he's in Terminator Salvation. Is that Salvation? No, it's Genesis. Oh, he's the guy that they had play the cop / T-1000.
Oh, good.
In the new one. That works.
Sure.
Yeah, that works. Anyhow, he is a very lethal guy with some
Knives. Throwing them, stabbing with them.
Slashing with them, basically everything. And there's a moment where he's trying to teach some of the townsfolk how to use said knives. And Jareth is watching it, and he was like, "Yeah, the principle is simple.
Because he goes, this is easy." And he describes the way you can kill with a knife: throwing them, stabbing them, and then slashing with them. And he goes in between two target dummies and starts spinning.
He hurls one. He hurls one to begin with. He hurls two to begin with. He's like, "It's easy." And then he's like, wham, wham. We're like, no, it's really kind of harder than
all
that.
of the fucking villagers are just like, nope.
They all start walking. He's like yelling at them. He's like, "Get back here. You can do this."
Wow.
The premise is simple. Stick them with the pointy end.
Yeah, the pointy end goes in them.
The execution.
That's a Game of Thrones line.
Well,
Yeah. So
also a very accurate line.
It is.
now, but the movie
My
doesn't.
life motto.
The pointy end goes in them.
Stick 'em with the pointy end.
The movie doesn't start with Good Night. It starts with the bad guy,
Well, it starts with the town.
Bartholomew
Bogue.
and
Not Bartholomew. Bartholomew.
Bartholomew.
Is there an L at the end?
No, am I
Yeah.
adding an L?
Yeah, you're adding an L.
I am sorry. Bartholomew.
If this was like a Zootopia-esque, like everybody's anthropomorphic
All right,
animals,
all right,
then
all right.
yeah.
So it's played by Peter Sarsgaard, which that sounds like an eviler name than Lord Voldemort, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
a
So
pretty
he
holy
makes
name.
he makes a really good bad guy.
And there's like a shitload of Skarsgårds out there doing all kinds of stuff.
probably.
This is a Sarsgaard, not a Skarsgård.
Oh, shit. My bad.
Sarsgaard.
Well, he's a pretty malevolent-looking motherfucker.
Yeah,
That's the point.
And this whole movie, he's a pretty awesome bad guy.
He's a
for what this
prick.
is.
Yeah.
He's a super dick. Like, he shows up in this town. He walks into their little town meeting inside the church with all of his gunmen, and they're like, "This is the house of God. You don't need, guns in here." And he starts telling this story. And there's this moment, and Jareth, tell me if I'm like way off from this, but he like looks, everyone in this town fears him. Everyone in this town does not particularly care for this particular guy.
But they're all super scared of him.
Super duper scared of him. But there comes a moment where he's got this jar, and he looks at this guy, and he looks at this kid, and he's looking at this kid, and he's like, "Come up here, son, give me a hand." And then this dad's like, yeah, you better go up there. But
Does it ever explain why the entire town is scared of him?
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Because he's basically got them enslaved.
yeah. effectively. But he sits there and he's like, look, all this land, everything that you all own, whenever I got here, as soon as I laid my eyes on it, it all became dust. And I'll pay you $20 for all your dust. And everybody's like, my land is worth like 100 times that.
3 times.
3 times that. I apologize.
$20 is still a pretty sizable chunk of change.
True. But yeah, he's like, I'll give you $20 for your land. And they're like, no.
Wow.
And he's like, yeah, that's the offer. And it's only going to get worse if you don't accept my offer. And then he goes to leave and they're kind of hassling the preacher man. And one of the townsfolk steps up to kind of get in the middle of it because what they're doing is wrong.
Well,
you're being bad people.
They're like beating the fucking preacher like to death.
Yeah. And so one of the dudes is finally like, fuck this. And he rises up to defend this guy.
And I'm guessing he dies.
And he calls this particular monster out. And he's like, what kind of man are you? And he just casually, very casually, like the whole thing is just like.
Was he new there?
No.
Sounds like it.
But this whole scene, and I think it's what I love about this movie is there are several moments where it's just like everything is really ramped up. The tension is thick as all get out. Like you can cut it with a knife, but then it's just so peaceful for a second, right?
Yeah, because fucking Bogue just kind of like walks back up to him
and he's just
walking away.
He's just like
he stares at him for a second, like
and then
he's like about to say something, and then
he really calmly just he rolls his jacket back to expose his gun. And then he just pulls it out and shoots him right in the chest.
Damn.
Like
he doesn't say anything. He doesn't acknowledge what this guy is doing. What he said, nothing. He just like, okay, this is where we're at. Boom. And then he walks promptly over to the sheriff of the town and he goes, leave the bodies in the streets.
Oh, he has his men kill some like other dudes as well.
Because one woman starts to run away, and he's got like this dude that's an Indian. I don't know I don't know if he's supposed to be like a Comanche or an Apache or whatever. But
no, he's some sort of Native American.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so one woman starts to run away, and this dude takes a tomahawk and just straight up chucks it at this woman's back. And she's down, she's out. And then some other guy's like, you son of a, and he goes to draw down, and then they kill him. And there's like 6 or 7 people that just die.
Why does he tell the sheriff to leave the bodies?
Because he owns the sheriff, and he wants the people to understand what it is that just happened. Like, you all fucked up, and they all died as a result of this incident.
Well, I'm sure they got that by watching the people die, but I still understand what the point of leaving
It's
the
to
body.
rub it in.
It's an additional intimidation tactic.
It's to rub it in.
He's leaving their dead in the street.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's this monster. This is like the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yep.
And so,
Tell me he goes down.
but that's the goal.
So
right?
he's the reason for calling the 7.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
but
because he says I'm going to come back in 3 weeks, and
Yeah.
anybody who doesn't
his
have their
answer,
deed on his desk
he's
is
like,
going to be dead.
You're going to give me your deed to your land. I'll give you your $20, and we're going to pay this up fair.
Bright side,
But if
he
you don't-
is still offering the $20.
That's true. But he's like, but if you don't, you best be right with your dear and fluffy lord.
Skydad.
So yeah, Skydad. Yeah. So and then he just leaves. But the guy that he killed, the dude that he shot in the chest, which I take one issue with that whole beginning scene, and I told you what it is last night when we watched it. The preacher man, they set the church on fire. The preacher man that's in town there, after all these people have been killed, like he's all crying and stuff. He's like, in the house of the Lord. And I'm like,
granted, he's very likely concussed at this point. He got kicked in the head several times.
Yeah.
but like they had all this stuff going on, and then it like snaps to him. That's his one line, then it goes elsewhere, and it just, I don't know, it was kind of oddly placed.
Plus, for all we know, just before that, he was like crying about the dudes that were killed.
Maybe
Because it did snap to him right as he's saying, in the house of the Lord.
Oh my God.
So he could have been like, they killed all these people. And then he's like, in the house of the Lord.
Yeah.
Wow.
So then the very next scene we find Denzel Washington's character, Chisholm, and he's rolling into a town, and he's tracking down a guy who has a warrant, because he's a duly sworn warrant officer.
Yes. He is he's a lawman.
He's a legal,
Specifically one who hunts down people who have committed crimes
but
and
he's
left.
not technically a bounty hunter, because he call him that, and he's like, no sir, I am a duly sworn warrant officer.
Back
Yeah.
then, wasn't that the marshal?
There
Isn't
are
the marshals that used to go around and collect people for that had bounties and warrants and stuff?
I'd imagine that the
Marshals-
marshal services were a thing at the time.
Marshals-
Marshal services were a thing at the time.
Marshals
Yeah.
also performed
I mean,
that task.
I don't know what time period it is. I know it's Old West, but
1876.
so then around that time you would have marshals. I'm pretty sure that's. I mean, at some point.
But he doesn't go by the title of marshal.
Oh, okay.
His
But anyone
one-
that is like, hey, sir, are you a bounty hunter? Because that actually happens. So that's in the scene following what it is we're talking about
Well,
now.
specifically, the distinction is that he is an actual lawman
Correct.
with one specific task.
Correct.
Whereas
That
a
is his
bounty
thing.
hunter is a freelancer. Anybody who's just like, this is what I
Right.
do.
I got a gun and some bullets, and I know where a bad guy is. I can go wrangle him up and get me some money. That's
Okay.
a freelance bounty hunter.
And then a marshal is a step above him in that he is actually just working for the federal government to provide law.
Yeah. And the marshals usually they rolled together. I don't think there was ever one by themselves.
But this
You know.
first scene where we find Denzel Washington's character, he's very clearly outgunned. There's like
Yeah, but
four,
it's Denzel. You don't worry.
there are like 4 or 5 guys sitting around.
Oh, that's kind of the Western thing there.
Right.
Is every one of these 7 men is an incredible gunslinger.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah. That's exactly
perfect.
the
right.
guy with the knife.
Well, even he's pretty good with a gun also.
Oh, okay.
Several times he picks up a gun throughout.
Yep.
Because he runs out of knives.
Yeah, he does.
But Denzel Washington goes into this saloon, Sam Chisholm,
Yep.
and he's talking to the bartender, and it becomes...
Is very apparent that he's found his guy already.
Yeah, the bartender is the guy he's after, and he's talking to him. And there's a bunch of guys throughout the bar who are all like getting ready for
They're all getting in position. They're all dropping hammers back.
and a lot of them are probably just not super happy that he's a black guy in the bar because it's 1876.
Right. That's the other issue.
But others are probably like, maybe they're friends with the bartender. Who knows? So he's talking to the bartender.
In a far corner, Chris Pratt's sitting there playing a card game with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Being Chris Pratt in a
Being
Western.
Chris Pratt. I love it.
Being Chris Pratt in a Western.
Yeah, he was very Chris Pratt throughout.
I love Chris Pratt, but I have a very, very difficult time picturing him in that time period because he's such a...
The following scene
know.
where it's exclusively him, it's Chris Pratt in a Western, and it's wonderful.
I don't doubt it. It's a difficult thing for me to picture because he's not... I wouldn't peg him as a Western actor.
So long and short of this, these
He
guys
kills like
think,
7 dudes in 2 seconds.
Well, he doesn't kill them. He disarms all of them.
Oh yeah, he shoots the
He
guns or foot off of those dudes.
He shoots the fucking chair out from underneath this guy, and he shoots one guy in the hand. Like, he disarms all these people, and then he turns back to the guy that he's looking at, and he like fucking twirls a gun, puts it back in the holster, and he's sitting here talking to this guy again.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's like pleading with him because suddenly it's like, we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
This is who he's after, right?
Yeah.
And that was impressive.
Yeah.
And this guy's like, I got a family. He's like, they'll get along without you.
Oh,
Specifically,
That
he says
sucks.
they'll get along better without him.
Yes. And so
wow. Yowch.
this guy's like, screw it. And he goes for his gun. And then he ends up shooting him. And then he
bad
turns around and he's like, someone fetch the sheriff. And no one moves. So he goes to get his gun out. And everybody like gets up and runs out of the building, except Chris Pratt, who promptly scoops up all of his earnings and everything of that nature from the table and leaves through the back door.
I wouldn't say that those are all of his earnings necessarily.
They are at that moment.
Yeah,
There-
if he's the only one that sticks around to collect what's on the table, then yeah, that's his earnings.
Those are his earnings.
Yeah, true.
So then he walks out the back door and he's promptly greeted by 2 former people that we assume that he met from a prior incident of something
Oh, they
similar.
say a town, and they say that he owes them $50 because he cheated them in cards.
Yeah.
There's always that guy every time in every western.
That's-
There's always the cheater at
But
cards.
that's the thing. I think that's kind of the cool thing about this movie is they really, really feed into a lot of stereotypical tropes for Westerns.
Yeah.
It's very Western.
Oh, very Western. And so then they're walking about there and they're like, let's take him to that mine over there. He's like, no, here's as good a place as any. And they're like, get in that mine. He's like, no, there's rats in there. I'm not going in there. And he's like, if you're gonna rob me, rob me. If you're gonna kill me, kill me. But right here's where you're gonna do it.
He's used a rat as a microphone. How can he complain about rats?
Well,
I'm
wrong
sorry.
movie. But then he's like, hey, since you're gonna be robbing and or killing me anyhow,
Yeah.
how about a magic trick? And he gets out some cards, and one of the dudes is like totally against it, and he's like, no. And the other guy's
Welcome
like,
to Magnificent Seven, the audio book.
yeah, but shut up. The other dude is like, hey, no, I love.
Well, I mean, this is just what it kind of devolves into most of the time.
just
Go on, keep going.
shut up. So we got the other dude's like, yeah, I want to see this fucking trick, and he pulls off this kind of impressive card trick. I mean, it's relatively impressive what he does, right? But it lowers their guard because they're like with every card trick that ever ends up occurring, you're like watching the guy, but then instantly you look at the dude that's with you and you're like, hey, yeah. And then because they're not paying attention, he ends up shooting one of them and then gets the drop on the other one.
Nice.
But then later in the movie, this kind of comes back around where he's talking to this other guy and he's supposed to be like the drunk of the group. And he's like, hey, man, you give me a drink of your whiskey and I'll teach you, a thing or two about using that gun.
Yeah, I could see that.
And
Specifically, this is one of the townsfolk.
Yeah.
Not one of the 7.
Correct. And so he's like, yeah, give me a sip of your whiskey and I'll teach you, a trick or two. And he's like, okay. And so he's like, all right, and he gets out a card. He said, take the card from me. You take the card from me, you live. You don't take the card from me, you die. And he goes to take it from him and he pulls it back and he goes, you just lost your first gunfight. You got to be fast. And the guy's like, okay. And he goes, that was lesson number 2. The first one is he holds his hands up and he's like, it's lesson number 1. I don't shoot. And, and he kind of get this tone like he's being pretty condescending at this point. But then he's like, okay, then I'm like, all right, cool. He's actually teaching him something. And he's got this card and he's like, take this card. And lesson number 2 is take this card. You take it from me, you live, you don't, you die. And the kid goes to take it from him, and he manages to get away from him, but the instant he gets it away from him, he draws a gun on him. He's like, lesson number 3, it was never about the cards.
Oh.
And that relates directly back to that first scene where we see him, where it's like, it was never about the cards.
Yeah.
But you kind of get that we as an audience, we get watching this. That's not what that was supposed to be. This is very clearly a ploy for him to be able to, he's not going to just be like, hey, watch this card trick and then you can kill me.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think that ploy's already been done by that point. It's not, he's not re-illustrating that. In fact, the tone I got from it was more, he was kind of being a dick.
He was being a dick, but at the same time, that's who his character is. He's kind of a sleight of hand type of dude where it's like, look here while I do this over here.
Yeah. And
that moment actually kind of, in my opinion, comes up 3 times because you see
there is also the end, yeah.
But those subtle moments throughout the movie that are just kind of like sprinkled in there kind of lead to that last moment with the big payoff.
True.
And I think that's very clever of how they put this together in order to give that character that particular depth.
Sure.
So, audiobook.
Well, we have just described the first 15 minutes of the movie.
If that. So, we end up having to split off, and they end up finding a couple of the other characters.
They split up to go get the other characters.
Yeah.
Denzel Washington and the young woman go to find one of his other marks, who is a Mexican.
One of his other bounties.
Wait, now there's a young woman?
No, it's the same woman that her husband got shot in the chest.
Yeah,
okay.
she goes to find them.
Yeah, she's the one that
Gotcha.
sets out to go bring them all together. Now, Dire Monkey, I have a question on that.
Go.
Now, you saw 7 Samurai. Does that kind of line up with what happened there? Because I remember from watching some of the trailers that there is a woman that's like kind of interacting with them.
From what I remember, yeah.
Is that also kind of the same? Like there was a guy from the village that dies, and then she ends up being the one that kind of ropes them together to kind of help.
I say it was like a daughter or granddaughter or niece or something like that.
I was kind of curious about that. And I was also doing some reading that at the end of the 7 Samurai, there are 3 samurai that die, and there are 4 that end up leaving. But in the 1960s version, there are 4 of the cowboys that die, and 3 of them are getting ready to help bury the dead. One of them stays, and the other 2 leave town.
I haven't seen the original.
And that's fine. But Jareth and I start making predictions mid-movie on who it is that we think is going to die and why.
Just based pretty close to right.
Just based off their characters. The first big gun battle that we see all 7 of them in, and this is after we meet Jareth's favorite character, which is Red Harvest.
Red Harvest is awesome as fuck. Red Harvest is when they're all on their way back to the town, they meet, they camp out, and the next morning they see a Native American guy, and they're all like drawing down on him. They're worried as shit. They're like, "Fuck, we're gonna get ambushed." But it turns
where there's one, there's more.
Turns out this is a Comanche man who has been separated from his tribe because the elder said that he walks a different path. Well, Sam Chisholm speaks Comanche and is like, hey, we're about to go do something really good and probably get killed doing it. And so Red Harvest is like, cool, my name's Red Harvest. And he cuts him off a chunk of deer meat and he's like, we're going to eat this and make a deal and I'm coming with you.
Sure.
And that's pretty
Hop
much
on board.
They're like, what'd he say? He's like his whole dialogue is basically just, I'm Red Harvest, and then he gives him this chunk of meat, and he just takes a bite of it, and he gives it to him, and he takes a bite of it, and they both kind of like nod at each other, and then they walk back, like, what'd he say? And he's like, he says he's with us.
And that motherfucker kicks
All right.
ass.
Yeah, he does.
So they eat raw deer meat?
Yeah.
Ew.
Now, there is another character that we haven't really mentioned at all, and that's Vincent D'Onofrio's character.
I don't recall his character's name, but
Neither
he's the
do I.
tracker.
Yeah, he's a tracker.
He's got like a raccoon hat and like bear fur.
Jack Horn.
Jack Horn is the character?
Jack Horn.
Okay.
Because when we first start the introduction to Jack Horn, there are these two guys that are like, well, I don't know about him being a legend or anything of that
I think it's
nature.
the Pigeon Brothers
Yeah,
or
the
something
Pigeon.
like that.
We're the famous
What?
Pigeon Brothers. Yeah, they kill him, or they thought they killed him,
And they were trying to sell them his rifle.
as proof that he had in fact been killed. And they're like, yeah, we killed him. He snuck up behind him and smashed him over the head with a rock, and he fell off a cliff. And they're like, you don't have a body. He's like, yeah, we smashed him over the head, and he fell off a cliff. So he's dead. Here's his gun.
That's not good.
At that exact moment, a tomahawk comes flying out on the left screen from nowhere and embeds itself in one of these guys' chest. And then you look over, and here's Vincent D'Onofrio's character like storming at him. And you're like, holy crap. And this other guy's like, oh shit.
So he starts trying to level the rifle at him, but the rifle goes off in the sky. Vincent D'Onofrio comes over and beats him to death.
Wow.
But
He's played some very interesting roles for
his
as
character-
teddy bear looking of a guy as he is. he's like,
I mean, he wasn't always teddy bear looking. He's played some pretty like
yeah, he played,
muscular roles.
he played, was basically Thor in, Adventures of Babysitting. He's not really, but
Plus, he's
I
an
haven't seen
incredible
that.
actor in general.
yeah.
he is. Do you guys ever see The Cell?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
That's one where he's
Yeesh.
not really like super pudgy either.
So here
I
he
think,
is.
isn't
Yeah, he was pudgy. In
He
that
was
one, too.
pudgy?
Yeah.
Okay.
But his character is like extremely soft-spoken.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen him in a bunch of different things. The most recently being Daredevil, and he is very gruff,
Mm-hmm.
and his voice is kind of like.
But he's also
like this,
still soft
but
spoken.
he's soft-spoken.
He's always at like a less than
It's like a
conversational
growl.
tone.
Isn't he?
But it's like a growl with him. But with this, he's kind of up here, and he's like, "This is all my property." And
He
they
kind of
took my-
rambles. He like always rambles what he's saying, even if
Really?
he's like
Yeah.
to the point. He's saying what he means, but it
Huh.
always sounds like some guy rambling.
But it's excellent acting. I mean, it's very impressive. But they're like, "Hey, we're gonna go kill some guys, and we thought you might be interested." And then he just leaves.
He just walks off, doesn't say shit.
He just fucking
Okay.
leaves. And then the next morning, whenever the Comanche shows up, his character comes back, and they're like, "Have you been tracking us for the past couple of days?"
wow.
Yep, and he was just following.
He's just fucking following them at a distance.
All right.
But then they roll into town, and then that's when this first battle starts off with the security guys that are there. And-
Blackstone.
Yeah. And Denzel Washington has some good lines with them where he's like, y'all are a bunch of cowards and whatever. But we start to see something with Ethan Hawke's character that you wouldn't have been able to pick out before.
Yeah, everyone else, because there wasn't a fight before. So
Yep.
he's in the back with a rifle because he was a Confederate sharpshooter.
And at no point in time prior to that, I mean, you see Billy in action. You see Chisholm and you see Chris Pratt's character. You see everybody's character except for Red Harvest in some kind of action prior to this moment.
Yeah.
And so there's been this tone already set that all of them are pretty badass, except for Red Harvest and Ethan Hawke. You haven't seen anything from them.
Which Red Harvest pretty promptly proves himself.
Because during the exchange with Denzel Washington, these fucking guys are like, all right, we've had enough of this. And they whistle, intending for their guy on a roof to shoot him. And
The
he
guy
goes-
just falls off
he's
the
like,
fucking roof.
he goes, maybe he didn't hear you. And he says something in Comanche, and then the body falls off the roof, and he
Awesome.
draws down an arrow and promptly shoots a guy across the length of the town in the chest with an arrow, and that guy falls over dead. And then these guys that are standing there are like, well, shit.
And then the fighting proper starts.
Yes, it does.
wow.
But the whole time,
Ethan Hawke's
Good-
character's just kinda
Goodnight's like-
in the background.
he keeps drawing down on guys, but like he doesn't pull the trigger. He's
Yep.
like shaking. He starts like hissing like he's a fucking vampire
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at the sun.
He's like, ah, ah.
Like he starts freaking the fuck out.
Why?
Shell shock.
He's yeah.
Okay.
His nerves are toast.
Jesus. All right.
Apparently, he was in some of the worst battles of the Civil War. He has over 23 confirmed kills, which is impressive. And I guess it just shook him. And so now he's just been going around getting by on his reputation.
Yup.
Hasn't needed to actually get in a gunfight because he's fucking good in aerobia.
Which they did that. They did that exact thing. They said, and I totally danced over the top of it because I wasn't paying attention. But they did exactly that when Billy's doing basically back alley duels.
Okay.
Which are not, they're like speed draw tests.
Yeah. They have
Each guy
set behind them, and then one guy shoots on my gun. He shoots, and then both draw and shoot to try to shoot the cup off the from behind the other guy.
Whoever shoots their cup first wins.
Yeah, and Goodnight, his boy in the fight is Billy,
the knife guy.
The knife guy.
Okay.
And where we first find them in this gun battle or this duel.
He shoots and is declared winner. The other guy is like...
He's pissed.
He's like, well, fuck it, let's do it for real. So, fucking Billy kills him with a knife instead of with a gun.
Not a knife.
Awesome.
A hair pick. It's a freaking dagger looking... I mean, it's a spike.
Like a fro pick?
Yeah, it's like a spike. Looks like a steel...
It's a
and
pin, not a pick.
Whatever. It's a pin about that long. He just takes it... He drops his belt, takes his hat off, standing sideways. They're like... on your mark, and then they fire, and he takes that thing out and chucks it and fucking kills that guy.
Well, all right then.
Well,
That's one way to do it.
so Goodnight Robichaud is going around trying to collect debts, and one guy's like, he cheated. I'm not going to give you my money. And the guy next to him,
he's like, it's okay, Goodnight. He's drunk. He doesn't know any better. And this dude immediately like straightens up. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, Goodnight. I didn't know this was your guy. I am so sorry. He's like, that's fine. You can just pay me double.
Oh.
And the guy he ends up just paying him. But that speaks to that moment. I didn't even take that into consideration.
yeah, Goodnight's been getting by on the fact that he's fucking Goodnight.
Yeah.
And any real problem that's come up has definitely been Billy handling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because they've just kind of been running in tandem because they're just literally riding off of his name.
Because Billy
Billy's fighting skills.
Billy seems to know that this is a problem.
Yes.
Because
he takes up for him.
Because Chris Pratt, after the end of the fight's like, why didn't you shoot that guy? And he's like, well, Billy walks up and says, let me see the gun. And he goes, oh, it's jammed, which is bullshit.
And
we know it's not
Chris
jammed.
is like, no, because he calls him out later on it. He was like, oh, no, the men just need some inspiration from someone who knows what they're doing. Here,
when they're
you
trying to
do
train
it.
the town folk.
Uh-huh.
He's like, here, you do it. And they've got these like strawman dummies set up out there. And he's like, all right. He's kind of reluctant at it, but he's like, all right. So he takes this gun and he shoots the post where it's like the neck piece for this thing. He shoots it so many times that it like falls off. And all the men
Puts
are like
6 shots.
in like basically the same fucking spot. And these guys are like, holy shit. And he's like, yep, told you.
Yeah.
So Chris Pratt's character doesn't ever come out looking like a dick there, except for to the audience and to Goodnight.
Well, yeah.
Because Goodnight knows exactly why he did that.
Yep.
There's not a lot of whole middle ground there. But the 7 are drawn together for this common problem, but they don't really get along to begin with.
I don't know.
But they kind of grow together.
They get along pretty promptly, actually. Like,
Yeah, there's some tension between them.
the tension's all like buddy tension, though. Like the sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. You were talking.
The worst tension that you see is between Chico. Is that the Mexican's name?
Vasquez.
Vasquez. Because you were calling him Chico, and that's why I got on Chico.
Go to the one from 1960. Well, Chico is what they named him in the other movie.
Gotcha.
It's Chico.
Okay, so Vasquez and Chris Pratt's character, whose name I also have no idea what.
Josh Faraday.
Faraday. That's right.
Faraday. Yeah.
They like interact negatively,
Oh,
but
yeah.
they're
But
always
then they kind of can become buddies too.
they're always trading blows, and it's
They're
always
like-
ending with a smile.
They're like
not
Legolas and
Gimli.
Yeah.
Really?
It's like that. They're like, I killed 6. And he's like, I killed 7.
But that seems to be the norm. Anytime you have any kind of movie or any kind of band of people coming together that don't have any previous knowledge of each other, there's always, even if they get along famously, there's always some sort of tension in the beginning because they don't know each other. They don't know how to interact with each other completely.
From what
yet.
I understand of not only Seven Samurai, but also the original 1960s Magnificent Seven, because I haven't seen it in several years. And Dire Monkey, I know that you said that you've seen these movies several years back, but the banter between them all leading up to the big fight is kind of what brings us to actually caring about these people
but that's always how it is.
Well,
Lord of the Rings, Avengers, League of Extraordinary Men, that's always the theme, is that they don't get along. There's not necessarily they don't get along, but that they're not a full unit. They're still trying to figure out how to work off of each other, and the banter is what helps you learn to care about them.
Well, see, I'm just arguing that I don't think that their banter was all that tense.
No. It tried to be.
Well, part of the nature of Chris Pratt being Chris Pratt is he's always like a charming asshole.
He is.
He's never like, oh, fuck, Chris Pratt just fucking burned the shit out that guy.
Like that one dude where he's like, he goes, you're going to make a great rug. And he's like, well, then you're going to get killed by the world's greatest lover.
Yeah.
And they all just kind of stare at him like,
you really just can't hate Chris Pratt for being Chris Pratt. You
can't. You can.
So immediately that interaction between Vasquez and Faraday, there's kind of always like a wink and a smile every time that they're taking digs at each other.
Yeah.
And that
except that one moment where he's like, I got 6, I got 7. He's like, you want to settle this up? And he's like, you just named the place. And then they both just kind of scowl at one another.
Yeah, but that's just two guys being like, I'm better than you.
I got a bigger dick than you do.
Yeah, it's a dick measuring contest.
Yeah, that's all it is.
So I don't think that there's really any moment where there's actual, even between two characters that could have had a lot of tension, which is
Red Harvest and
John
Horn.
John Horn, because John Horn was an Indian hunter.
Oh yeah, he was making money off of scalping Indians.
Awesome. Okay, but see, that's also a cliche. Every time you get a group of people together to go on an adventure, whatever it may be, there's always the two guys that have to have the dick measuring contest.
That's true.
Legolas and Gimli.
Yep.
Captain America and fucking Iron Man.
Yep.
And League of Extraordinary Men. Who was it in that one?
I don't know.
Of Gentlemen.
Yeah, League of Extraordinary.
She's thinking of the other one.
No. The one.
Oh yeah,
it's got a true dick.
It's an actual dick measure.
Oh Jesus Christ! I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm talking about the one with Sean Connery.
Wow. I know what you're talking about, but
I know the film, but I'm having trouble recalling many of the.
Okay, so I'm pretty certain it's Tom Sawyer is the other guy, and he's the agent. He's supposed to be like the kid that's taking up after.
What was the actor that played that guy? I forget.
He's pulling it up. We'll find out here in just a moment. But
anyway,
that's
like a cliche. You were talking about how this movie has all the good stereotypical Western stuff.
Let's see here. You've got
that's another one.
Alan Quartermain, which is Sean Connery's character. You had Captain Nemo.
Nemo.
It's Nemo. Nemo.
In the movie, it's Nimoy.
Nemo.
It's Nimoy.
Nemo. Anyhow, Tom Sawyer. Yeah, it's Tom Sawyer. And it's Shane West is
Shane West.
That.
Okay.
Well, so
they have one.
There's a moment the night before the battle where they're all kind of just like partying, like just kind of hanging out,
just trying to relax because they all know that it's coming to a head tomorrow. Because they thought they had 3 weeks, but while they're like, you don't understand, sir, we've only got 3 weeks. He's like, you have 1 week. And they're like, what, where are you getting 1 week from? He's like, well, it's a 3-day ride to Sacramento, 1 day to make a plan, and 3 days back. So you've got a week. Yeah. And suddenly everybody's like, we're fucked. He's like, well, go get some rest because we're going to be training.
Yeah.
So either leave or train. And then they train. And then this is the last day, night before.
Yeah. And they do a lot of, anyway, to get back to the point I was making, there could have been a lot of tension between Red Harvest and Horn.
Yeah.
But there really wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Red Harvest up to this point in time hasn't really spoken English to anyone.
And he speaks like, I think he has like a total of 10 lines.
Yeah.
He doesn't really talk.
I mean,
he whips a shitload of ass though.
Yeah, he does. For every ass he whips, he has maybe 1/4 the lines in the movie. I mean, it's
right.
His talk to ass kick ratio is skewed.
Yeah. But this film also isn't really well suited or paced for a large amount of
dialogue.
Well, not just dialogue, specifically conflicting dialogue.
Yeah.
Because, like, say, in Avengers...
That's why the fucking Seven Samurai is 3.5 hours, because they spend, like, 30 fucking minutes on each of the samurai.
There's a lot of dialogue in it.
Yeah. That's precisely... I mean, from everything I've read and everything I know of that movie, they spend a lot of time investing us in those characters. That's why it's 3.5 hours long.
Yeah. And I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to watch the movie, but
Right.
whatever. But, like, say, in Avengers... there is a primary focus on the disconnect between the characters.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to bring them together as a team.
But we also
This
span
one-
this out over several movies.
This
so it might
one-
as well be 3.5 hours
Well, I
long.
meant the first movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because the first movie was, we don't like each other. Okay, we've got to
And
work
Sam
together.
Jackson trying to force them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas with this one, they're already in a team.
Yeah.
They've already got a plan. There's no time for them to be, like, bickering amongst themselves. Even if that could have fleshed out those characters, we don't need those characters fleshed out beyond those archetypes.
Right.
We know what they do. We have a basic idea of their personality. Sam Chisholm's the one. Well, Sam Chisholm and Goodnight Robichaud are like the two with the most like real backstory going
Yeah.
on.
But okay, so that came part of our predictions later on. So this night that he's referring to, Goodnight's like,
Peace out.
bye.
I can't do
I
this.
can't do this. I'm leaving, and he leaves.
Okay.
And so from this, and because there are, your stereotypical Western tropes, we start to kind of make predictions. This is like the best moment that you can come to in the movie where you can start making predictions from what you know about these characters on who it is going to die by the end of the movie.
And I was like,
Because
Chris
you know
Pratt's gonna die
Chris
because
Pratt's
he's the
gonna die.
scoundrel.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
We knew that at some point in time, Goodnight was coming back.
That's
Okay.
just an obvious.
Rides back into town, and he's like, "Hey, I'm back mid-fight."
But we were also like, Goodnight's also gonna die.
As a result of doing that, because he has to go out a hero, right?
Yeah.
It's a
You can't
redemption
slink-
story
You
for him.
can't slink out a coward. And then, I mean, you could slink out a coward, but you kind of then hate that character.
Yeah.
But
And
to
they spent
redeem
too
him-
much time making us like him.
exactly. And
Well,
to
and it wouldn't
redeem
be
him,
the Magnificent Seven if you end up hating one.
Also true.
yeah.
Because it would just be the Magnificent
Yeah.
Six
It's
and
like
then that
the-
one asshole that fucking ditched everybody.
It's like, oh god, there was a movie with Mark Wahlberg a while back. I think it's like Three Kings or something.
yeah.
And there's like 4 characters the whole movie, and I'm like,
Why
is it called Three Kings? One of you guys is boned.
So he leaves, but he's coming back.
Right.
But the only way to make him go out a warrior
Is
is
for
to
him
kill him.
Yeah, he has
Yeah.
to fight and die.
So we're trying to go back and forth. I think we were trying to limit the number to 3 because we didn't know if it was 3 or 4 that would die.
Yeah.
But we knew that it wasn't going to be any more than 4.
I thought
Right.
Sam Chisholm was probably going to go, but if he didn't, it was going to be the tracker.
Right.
Horn.
And the reason that I wasn't inclined to agree with Chisholm to begin with, at first I was like, yeah, because he's the leader, it makes sense. But then I was like, well, the problem that you run into is that there's a moment between him and Goodnight is looking at the woman that has recruited him, and he's like, she's about the same age as your sister.
Would
or
be.
Would be. And he's like, yup. And he's like, I just want to make sure that we're fighting the battle in front of us and not the one behind us.
So there's
So
right
there's-
there. You're like, okay, there's an
there's some
emotional investment
history.
in this fight.
There's some history. And when the woman came to him and was like, hey, it's this fucking Bogue.
Yeah, and he's like, Bart Bogue, and
she's like, yeah. So he knows the name.
and then
Yeah.
he's like, yep, I'm in.
Yeah. Because a moment ago when the other guy was talking, there's 2 of them. It's her and her guy that's like helping her go around, whatever. He was like, no, I'm not helping you to the guy. But when she's like, you don't understand. This is who it is. This is what it is. He's like, wait, this guy? And he's like, yeah.
See, that's another stereotypical
board.
thing. There's the resistance. I don't want to do it. There's the name drop. And then, I'm in.
I'm all on board.
I got a bone to pick with that guy.
Why'd
So-
you
Yeah.
say Martha?
Yeah. Why'd you say Martha? So,
Mother's Day.
so
Jesus Christ.
we had not resolved that
Right.
at that point in time.
So he couldn't die because you still have to have
this
that.
is the final battle.
Right.
And the only person who has answers for us is either Chisholm
Right.
or Bart.
Right.
And it's more likely Chisholm.
And it's
Because
more-
Bart's a fucking
yeah, exactly.
pole
Well, right.
smoker.
And because Bart's got to die.
So Chris Pratt's character comes to his moment and he does die. We were right about that. He does die.
But we were wrong about him having the more meaningful death than Goodnight Robichaud.
We thought that Goodnight was going to have the
the heroic last stand thing that saves the day,
the thing that turns the bat. Like you'll always
the guy
have
that comes
you'll
in
always
in a
have
pinch.
that wave coming back and forth, because when the army first shows up, there's like 200 guys.
Yeah, it's a fuckload of dudes,
and it's like 40 townsmen and 7 of the gunmen, right?
Right.
And so it's like, yeah, y'all are stacked against some
which
heavy
they've
numbers.
set up traps and they've got fortifications. So there's that.
They've gone well out of their way. Like they're at one scene, and I actually turned and looked at Jareth at the time that I was doing this.
They're very specific when they're setting up those fortifications. Like you see them,
one of them is
measuring out the trenches.
One of them standing there, and one of them comes riding up on a horse, and he's like, it's 3 seconds from there to here. And like you don't need any context around that. You just know that
they were setting their dynamite traps.
Exactly. They're trying to figure out how far it's going to take in order to go from one spot to another, and then this way they can set their charge. Because when they see him in the trenches, Vincent D'Onofrio, Jack Horn, is sitting in there, and he's like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, quick, boom,
Yeah.
and it blows the shit out of a charging line.
Well, and
exactly.
And of course, there has to be some push and pull with the battle, because it wouldn't be a captivating fight if there wasn't a brief moment where you think, "Oh God, the good guys are going to get their asses."
But
handed.
as we're watching this,
at first they're whipping ass.
Yeah, they are.
Well, of course.
You're like, holy shit!
Yeah.
And then Bogue's like, bring out the weapon.
Yeah, and they roll this cart out, and they've got a Gatling gun.
Oh,
and
nice.
as they've got this thing
Sorry,
loaded on the
that was
back,
really
that's
loud.
all right. As they're on the back, as he's loading this thing out, one of the other dudes, that's one of his hired flunkies, is like, some of our men are still in there, and he's like, "Yep, fire it." And, and they load it up and just start cranking out rounds, and they're just raking the town.
You missed a spot. Goodnight Robichaud is missing for the first part of the fight.
Yes,
he shows up
with
in that
the news
lull
that there's a Gatling gun.
Because before that, they were all still in their defensive positions, which were about to get chewed down because they didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's Goodnight riding into town, going, "Get under cover, get inside. There's a Gatling gun." And so like everybody's like trying to frantically get out of their defensive positions, because as he was saying, they're just raking the town with the Gatling gun.
Yeah.
And
there's fuck all they can do about it.
Yeah.
And so
because it's well outside of shot range.
Goodnight can't even pop off, a sniper shot at this stupid thing from the bell tower. I mean, they're like, what the shit are we going to do? At this point in time, Chris Pratt's already been gut shot. And so like it's looking grim. Yeah. Right? Like, the whole time you're watching it, they're like, these dudes are just dulling out and ass kicking.
Mm-hmm.
And those other dudes are going to have to come storming down in here in a minute in order to back their boys up, or this is just going to fucking, like, you're just crashing against a brick wall. That's all you're doing. Wow. And it's not winning. But once they brought that gun out, they're like, nope, we're still in control here. And so Chris Pratt's,
they cut their forces by like 50% at least.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, they still took out a lot of their guys doing it, but whatever. But Pratt's like, we've got to take that gun out. And so he's like, fuck it. And he hops on his horse and like
while they're reloading the Gatling gun, he fucking hauls
balls. And and Goodnight and Billy are popping off rounds, picking off the guys that are chasing him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's almost there.
Gets shot like 4 more times.
Yeah, he gets shot again, and he finally gets shot and falls off his horse. Then he gets up and they shoot him again. They've shot him like fucking 4 times.
They shoot him in the leg specifically.
Yeah,
just to be assholes.
As he's staggering forward, he shoots him, and Jareth's like, "What the fuck? You shot him in the leg."
So he goes,
"What an asshole! You just shot him in the leg."
He wasn't aiming for the leg.
No, he totally was aiming.
Yeah, the guy was like, "Yep, boom." He ain't getting closer.
And then like he's just kind of like kneeling on the ground, and then he's trying to light a cigarette, and they're getting ready to shoot him again. And one dude, which this is another trope to a degree, where he's like, oh, "Hold on." So he hops down, he walks over, and he lights him a cigarette.
Yeah, he was brave. He was stupid, but he was brave. So he's like, fuck it, I'll give him a cigar before he goes.
They're like, cool. Right. So they walk over, he lights a cigar, and he like gets one good draw off of it, and he draws down the dude that lit it. He's
like about to put him out of his misery.
He's got a patch over his eye, and he draws down on him, and he's getting ready to shoot him, and then Pratt just falls over, like
face first.
And they're like, well, he's dead, and he goes back. Well, he's not really dead. This is that third moment where he's doing his I'm this sneaky
right
It's not about the cards. It was never about the cigarette.
He had
Right.
a thing of dynamite in his belt that he lit with the cigar
And then he
and
sits back
chucked
up,
it at the Gatling
and he
gun.
chucks it at the
Ah,
Gatling.
nice.
Which he's close enough to be in the blast as well, but
Yeah. So
But
he
he wasn't walking away from that fight anyway at that point.
But he has the most redeeming, like that is, like we were saying just a moment ago, that is the most like important death of them all.
well, after that, it's all that's left is Bogue and 2 of his henchies.
Right. Which Goodnight in that same moment, because they're providing cover fire as he's riding out there, the Gatling gun gets reloaded. Well, they're not going to worry about the one dude riding towards him. He's got guys on their back. They've got
Right.
guys here, and they just start drilling the bell tower. And
They
Goodnight
take both Goodnight and Billy in one shot.
And we did
Damn.
not predict that Billy would be one of the ones to die.
Wow.
We really didn't think so. Like we were like, okay, well, it's going to be Vincent D'Onofrio's character. It will be Jack, and that happens. And it's kind of the less. I mean, it's very anticlimactic.
It was just kind of this is a battle.
Yeah.
He went down.
yeah. And
I mean, it was specific because it was a one-on-one and they spent time on it,
Yeah.
but like he didn't stand a chance.
no, and at the very end of it, he's so angry. He gets shot in the back of the leg the first time too,
Then twice in the chest and once through the butt of the palm.
of his hand.
Yeah.
And
He's just like screaming at the Native American
it's
guy.
the Indian guy, the one that killed that woman at the very beginning, that he chucked the tomahawk and like snapped her spine in half with it. He turns around after he's caught that one in his leg, and the reason he didn't have a gun at this point in time is they're running low on ammo. And he just got done dragging one of the wounded into a building, and he throws him in there with his guns, and he's like, "Find ammo." And I didn't catch that the first go around. Jareth helped me remember.
Yeah,
that
because
part.
he was like, "Why the fuck didn't that guy
I was
help
like, "Why
him?"
didn't that little asshole sitting inside just watching this happen? Why didn't he shoot him? He gave him his gun."
Yeah.
Makes more sense now. But yeah, he was like, "Find ammo," and he catches around in the back of the leg, and he turns
Well,
around.
it catches an arrow.
Yeah. And yeah. And so he turns around, he gets his big ass Bowie knife out, and he's like, "Oh, you're going down." And like you've seen him, like at this point in time, he's like tackled a horse, a guy on a horse, but he tackled a horse.
He's
like,
tough as nails.
yeah. I mean, Chris Pratt like makes a joke when we
I think
first
that
meet
bear was wearing people clothes.
him. Yeah, like
Wow.
it's yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's a big dude. And,
Uh-huh.
you've seen him just like wreck through everything, but he's like, rah! And you can just see the meanness on him because Vincent D'Onofrio is an amazing actor. And he's like moving forward, and he catches another arrow, and then he catches another arrow, and then he catches another arrow. And then he just kind of like drops to like this like squatting position.
He's still screaming for a second.
And then all of a sudden he just gets calm. And
he like lets out this sigh, and there's this peace. And he's not dead just yet, but he's just kind of like,
and then it just
Oh.
kind of, he's like, yeah. And then it's like he's okay. And then he dies.
Weird.
It's haunting is what it is.
He talked about God several times before that, and how he believed in this cause specifically. Like he was like,
Yep.
because somebody mentioned that we were probably all going to die the next day. So he's like, well, I can't ask for more than to stand with men I respect in favor of a good cause. So it's like he's just like, yep,
Yeah.
I did my part.
And he's just like, and he's dead.
Yeah.
And so those are the 4 we lose. And then comes the final scene with Chisholm, and it does answer some questions in regards to his backstory with Bart.
Bogue had done the same thing to another town that Chisholm used to live in.
His 2 sisters, and his mother. And it starts and ends.
He had hung him, but Chisholm survived somehow. They don't really talk about
Yeah,
that.
they don't go into the specifics of that, but he's like, because like he pulls his collar
He's
back.
the undead.
And he's a zombie. Yeah, he pulls his collar back, and you can see the scars across his neck.
He wouldn't be a zombie.
Well, you know what I mean.
I mean, he
If
would be
he's
undead,
yeah.
but he wouldn't be a zombie.
Well, maybe he's the first.
That wouldn't make
But
him
if
a
he
zombie.
bites the next person, that next person becomes a zombie, and then that's where the plague starts. Anyway, so we're he's it starts and stops in the same spot. It
In the
starts in the
church.
church, and it ends in the church, because the church didn't burn completely to the ground; it's just completely burned out. And Bart's like crawling away from him
Because he fucking shoots him in, like, the leg.
Nice.
There's a lot of leg shots that happen.
Yeah.
And
We
but
wanted him to suffer through this.
Yeah, he's like, no,
Sure.
he's like, but you're not leaving. That's what this boiled down to. They have this like moment where they're getting ready to, it's like another duel.
It's like a duel.
It's like a duel, much like it's like
a boxing match if a 2-year-old were to go against Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It's like a duel because Bart goes to draw and Sam shoots it out of his hand and he's like, pick it up. And he's like, no. And he's like, pick it up! He's like, okay, I'll pick up the gun.
Wow.
And he picks up the gun and he shoots him again.
Sounds like he's getting a taste of his own medicine.
Yeah, it's bad. And then he ends up shooting him in the leg and he drags his happy ass inside this building. And Sam is like trying to draw this out. Mm-hmm. He's choking him to death. And he's like, you're going to pray. You're going to pray for all the people. You're going to pray for all those people of this last town you did this to. Like my mother that your men raped. And my sisters that your men killed. And for me, because you hung me. And like, it's like starts going off on all this stuff. And you're like, oh yeah, Bart done fucked. But then they do that same cliche thing that they always do.
Bart had a hidden gun, so while he's being choked, he's drawing it.
But then they draw around to this back camera angle where you can't see. Like you see from like above them. So you see the both of them kind of like entwined with one another. And you hear a gunshot.
Yeah, and then you don't know who got shot, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Bart didn't have a gun. He was choking him. Both hands, choking him. So the only person who has a gun is Bart. And so he's strangling him, and you're like, you hear bang, and then all of a sudden you see the both of them kind of like, and it's like they're startled, and they back away from one another, and there's like this gap, and you still can't tell what's happened. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden Bart like eases completely back, and then Chisholm kind of, and the camera moves around a little bit, and it's the woman that hired them all. She's hauled off and shot Bart.
Which, by the way, she's actually a pretty good shot herself.
A freaking awesome shot herself.
All right, then.
But it was another one of those stereotypical, and of course, what our prediction was or what Jareth's prediction was that they were going to go out together.
That Chisholm was going to get shot, and then Bart was going to be like, well, time for me to peace out. Yep. And then Sam's like, well, I got one more shot, and then I take him out, you know.
So there were a couple of those stereotypical moments that you could get to, and I liked the ones that they picked because it told a great story, and I really enjoyed this.
It was fun. Yeah, it was.
I'm not a big Western guy.
Yeah,
for the most part, but this was fun. I liked it.
It wasn't a Western. Like, it was a Western, but it wasn't a Western in like many of the same ways that many of the Westerns that I prefer were. Because it was more of just an action-driven film.
Right. It's an action film in a Western setting.
Now, many of the characters were very interesting, and I wish I could have gotten more time with them.
Right.
I wish that there were those moments where, like, there was that more time for them to be against each other and then find where they join.
Right.
Because I think that there's a lot of interesting dynamics that were never explored. But there wasn't time.
Yeah. So we're getting to the bottom end of the episode here, and I do want to address one last thing on my part, and then, Jareth, I'll pass the ball back over to you, see if you have anything else that you want to add to it. But with me, and one thing that I always run into as far as stories of this nature go, I look at motivations for characters, and I have to have, like, good reasons for people to be doing what they're doing. Kind of like with Suicide Squad, Slipknot, he's a bad guy. He's in a bag. First opportunity he gets to run away. He acts on who he is as a person. He goes to run away, but then he serves the movie its purpose by showing that there's actually a bomb in their head, and he gets blown up. Later in the movie, when Boomerang is like, oh, you destroyed the device that can kill me? Bye! And he leaves. That is exactly how I would anticipate his character to act based off of what it is that we know about him.
Yeah, but then he comes
right back. And my problem with that is why? What's your motivation to be there? Why? Mm-hmm. They have not done any good storytelling to make me understand why it is you're here.
Yep.
And I hate that.
So what is it with this film?
With this film, Chisholm has a good reason to be there.
Of course.
Chris Pratt has a pretty decent reason to be there. It's the payout and the fact that Chisholm bought his horse. And
mostly, I think he was just looking for something to be doing.
Yeah. You kind of get that from him. Goodnight's got a good reason.
He's a scoundrel with a golden heart.
Yeah. And Goodnight's got a good reason to be there because he's buddies with Chisholm. And Billy has a good reason to be there because he's buddies with Goodnight.
Yeah.
Jack's character Vincent D'Onofrio's character, I still can't figure out why he's there. Like, I don't see a good reason for it. Kind of like I also don't see a good reason for Red Harvest.
Well, with both of those, there is kind of a reason there. It's just not explicit. It's more explicit with Jack Horn, because they were like, well, you're obviously out of work now that the government's not paying for Indian Scouts.
Which they throw that at him.
Which, he thought that was a correct fight. He thought that was a good fight to be doing.
Right.
They told him that they were going to do a good fight. And I guess once he left, he kind of rethought it, and he was like...
But they never get the moment to touch on that.
Yeah, but they don't really get a moment to touch on him.
Right.
So...
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's like just oiling him up.
Now,
no one ever does it.
Yeah, Vasquez, his only payout and reason for really being there is we got one less bounty hunter chasing you. Because that's the deal, basically. Like, he shows up and he's like, you're one of my bounties, but I got a job proposition for you.
Huh.
But he still sticks around. And there comes a moment where I'm like, well, clearly he's got a warrant on his head for some bad reason. Potentially.
Yeah.
Okay. So...
He got kind of rapey there for a minute.
Yeah,
so.
a little bit. So I'm still trying to, between...
I mean, maybe he just likes killing dudes, and this was a good opportunity for him to be doing it.
Maybe.
And get away with it.
Because, I mean, if a warrant officer's like, you get a free pass to murder a fuckload of whiteys, and he's like, cool.
Dude, I'm all about that. Yeah, so, okay, I guess so. But, in Red Harvest, I guess the only other thing that I'm getting out of him is... Maybe he sees this as means of, like, this is the path that he's supposed to be on, the path that he was told.
If he's looking for his path, and then he just stumbles upon these people, and one of them's like, we're going to do good work.
Yeah.
With the skill set you have.
Yeah. But at that moment, they didn't know.
Well, they weren't... What he's saying is, I have this skill set, I'm looking for my path.
Gotcha.
And somebody's like, I'm looking for we're going to go fight for a good reason. And he's like...
Okay.
Answers from heaven.
Yeah. Okay. So but that's kind of one of the things with this movie is there's a lot of unspokenness that goes into it, like what we've been talking about.
Again, because there's just no time.
But they do a pretty good job of explaining it. But those motivations were a little foggy for me. And it's not that I need things completely spoon-fed to me, but at the same time, I need something a little bit more clear than, hey, we've destroyed the device that blows up your skull, and then 2 seconds later, he's leaving, and then 2 seconds after that, he's back again.
Literally everyone needs more than that.
Yeah, that was so fucking bad. But this actually does a pretty...
It was clear that there was a scene edited out in between those two.
There had to have been. And if there wasn't, then something's definitely wrong. But anyhow... That pretty much wraps up this movie. For me, Jareth, did you have anything else you wanted to add to it?
No, I think I'm good.
Fantastic. Allie, you have anything else you want to add in regards to all of the Western tropes and what you have as far as commentary there?
I'm not usually a fan of Westerns, but this sounds like something I might actually go check out.
It's actually pretty good.
Solid B plus maybe.
Yeah.
So it's worth.
I don't really trust your guys' ratings.
Well, we aim a little low because we got some pretty high standards at times, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Hey, B's a good film.
B is a great film. B plus is a great film. I just think, like I said, like we were saying, maybe 20, 30 more minutes worth of movie, and you would have had a solid A because you could have spent that extra time.
Then again, that could have also been
that could have wrecked it.
Yeah, it could have been more time than it needed. Because too much slowness could have ruined that film, too.
Yeah, perhaps. Anyway, it was right there at it. Dire Monkey, you have anything else you want to add?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, why don't you tell us about stuff over here at Spellbook before we close out on our end?
It's been a busy week. We
Yeah.
Got released on Steam on Tuesday. I had tons of downloads for the Infinite Black on Tuesday. We redid Heroes of Dire. Not redid. Added to.
All right.
Yeah. Lot of improvements to the UI and battles and the maps and stuff. So if you haven't played it in a week or so, download the new update. It's new, different, and a lot more engaging. And this week we'll be adding a lot more to it.
Hop in, boys and girls. Give it a try. It's a lot of fun.
Yep.
Gotta give it a go. That pretty much does it on that end of things. But for us, you need to make sure you get over to Spellbook Studios and check out their website and their forums and all that good stuff. You want to make sure that you're commenting on things and giving them feedback as it is. And
we like a lot of player feedback. Our games are developed via player feedback, so
yeah,
the more you talk to us, the more we add in.
Yeah, so that's what I appreciate about games is they don't turn a deaf ear to you. When they do, then it's kind of frustrating at times. Anyhow, get over and check out All Tower Media's website, alltowerpodcast.com. You can also find us on YouTube and like and subscribe to us on there. We've got videos and things of that nature that are
I would
constantly
assume
coming out.
that you found us through one of those two means already.
Yeah, YouTube, maybe Facebook. Perhaps you heard us on Flick Freaks, so maybe you didn't know about these things.
Well, if you're listening here,
Then you had to have found us on one of the other two. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get that. But
I'm just saying.
there are other ways to do this as well, like Spreaker, which is where I upload the videos to begin with that automatically upload it over to YouTube. It also is the site that
I know. I'm saying
offloads
that
it to
there's
the
just a
website.
good chance.
There are other means of locating this.
I'm not
there are
saying you're
several-
wrong in saying that. I'm
but
just
it's
saying.
not just those two. There's like a lot of avenues. So you probably have found us on some type of avenue if you're listening, but make sure you do go over
or
and
you're
like
being
and
like
subscribe.
forced to listen to by a madman.
I'm gonna
Good
throw-
job. You
I'm
turned
gonna-
him into a Murloc.
I'll throw the screw at your face. So it's actually a bolt. Sorry, it's not a screw. It's a bolt. I'll bolt your face.
Yeah, I'll throw this nut at your face.
Whoa. Easy, killer. Easy. So get over, like, subscribe, share us, tag us on Facebook things, send us messages. Tell us if you want to hear something.
Give us warm and fuzzy hugs.
Yeah. But lastly, hi, Arch Crusader.
Bye, Arch Crusader.
Hi, Arch Crusader.
Bye, Arch Crusader.
We love
I'm right behind you.
Jesus.
you. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night and be safe.
Bye.
Make sure to check out our website, All Tower. Fucking hell.
Bloody hell, mate.
Let me try that one again.
I love turtles.